Hey everyone, this is TJR, and I figured since I've talked about the Orville, I should talk about Star Trek Discovery as well. Last week I went online and signed up for the free trial of CBS All Access so that I could watch the opening 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. These 2 episodes constitute the pilot for the series. Now, it's going to be impossible to talk about this series without talking about the whole CBS All Access thing as well, and I will be talking about that. But first, I just want to talk about what aired, and what I saw, and what we all saw. So just to start, I will say that this is probably the most cinematic Star Trek that I've ever seen on television. And in fact, I will say that this is the most cinematic Star Trek I've probably seen in movies as well. And probably the most cinematic Star Trek I've seen since the original Star Trek the Motion Picture. I remember leading up to the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot, in a lot of interviews he would talk about how he wanted to give Star Trek a sense of scale that it didn't have. And I kept thinking to myself, yeah, Star Trek the Motion Picture gave it a sense of scale. Wasn't a popular film, but it definitely had a sense of scale. I was also taken by surprise by the fact that the main emphasis, or the main protagonist of the series, is not the captain or commander of the ship. It is instead the second in command. But perhaps what surprised me the most was the revelation that after spending 2 hours with this crew, the majority of them would not be back for the next episode. I have to admit, this is a unique and very different way to begin a Star Trek series. And I do give them kudos for doing so. But after watching this opening 2 hours, which I kind of think is not so much a pilot as it is a preamble to the rest of the series, I find myself wondering, is this Star Trek? And I have to keep saying it's too early to tell yet, because I haven't really been introduced now to the actual crew of the Discovery yet. Pilots for these kind of action-adventure and science fiction-driven shows can be hard to judge because you have to spend a lot of time establishing your characters and your settings and your situations so that you can begin to move forward and tell stories. Star Trek is known for many things. One, a very positive and uplifting vision of the future. And with that comes a certain amount of romanticism about humanity. It's also known for high concept ideas. And it's also known for exploring the social and political issues of the day by use of science fiction as an allegory storytelling device. Do I see any of that in this 2-hour pilot? I see hints of it if I look closely. Did I see a good TV action-adventure drama? Yes, I did. Considering that this is still, after all, a pilot, it was as good as any of the best I've seen on both broadcast, Netflix, and cable television. But for me at this moment, I think it's too early to tell if this is actually really Star Trek or just a really good action-adventure series using Star Trek as its backdrop. So now I'm just going to talk about a few things that I've heard and read about on the internet, some of the complaints that I've read about that I want to address as well. And the first thing I want to talk about is the Klingons. I know that some fans are not happy with this redesign of the Klingons, but quite frankly, I think the Klingons look great. Whenever people would question why the Klingons, starting with Star Trek the Motion Picture, suddenly looked so different from the Klingons in the original series, I would always say, well, the reason why is because the makeup effects got better. That's why. It's true that a few decades later, the series Enterprise would actually answer that question within the continuity of the series, but at the end of the day, the real answer is because the makeup effects got better. And quite frankly, I think that as the years have gone by, the look of the Klingons has become less and less fearsome. I think this redesign was very necessary, especially if you're going to have the Klingons as your primary antagonists in the series, which is the direction I think they're going in, obviously. You need to have some fearsome Klingons, and these Klingons do appear very fearsome and very menacing. And if nothing else, this redesign is a whole lot better than the redesign in the J.J. Abrams films. To a certain extent, I want to apply my own reverse logic to the look of the ship and the technology that seems to be available. When Enterprise premiered back in the 90s, they had a very interesting design challenge to meet. The series is taking place 100 years prior to the original series, yet the series is being made decades later when special effects technology has improved incredibly, and along with set design technology. Yet somehow they managed to create a bridge of an Enterprise that seemed more primitive, technologically speaking, than the one used in a series created back in the 60s. And they pulled it off well, and yet still made it look like a modern show. Now, this series is taking place only 10 years prior to the original series, yet it looks completely far beyond anything technologically used in the original 60s series. Yeah, I could complain about this, and part of me does kind of want to, but instead I'm just going to have to apply the same logic that I used to explain the Klingon makeup as I do for why this series, set 10 years before the original series, has set designs and technology that is far more advanced than the original series. Because the technology is better now. That's why. And I'm going to have to tell my inner fanboy to shut up now and stop complaining. Earlier, I discussed my feelings insofar as how I felt that while this might be a good science fiction adventure action drama, I'm not 100% sure that it will end up being Star Trek. And one of the first things that I saw that made me feel that way was the show's opening. You know, when I watch the opening for the Orville, I feel that romance that is Star Trek. And I'm not getting it from this opening. No, I am not going to judge an entire series by its opening. But for me, this opening felt and looked more like I was watching a DVD or Blu-ray menu than the opening of a new Star Trek series. So far, though, this definitely looks like it would be a very good science fiction action-adventure drama series. But whether it's going to be Star Trek or not remains to be seen. Will we be exploring strange new worlds and new life forms? Will we have that vision of the future that has always been a huge integral part of the series? Only time will tell, and that, of course, brings me to the whole CBS All Access bit of business. Yes, it's very, very obnoxious that CBS has chosen to distribute the series in the way that it is. And there is the possibility that allowing this particular distribution model to be commercially viable for CBS could set a bad precedence if fans allow it to. There is a part of me that just simply wants to cancel my free trial membership now and just wait for the series to be released on Blu-ray and DVD, which it will be. As I'm recording this, it's Saturday night, and if I'm not mistaken, the next episode airs tomorrow night. So I would love to get your feedback, and not only on the show, which I definitely do want to hear if you've watched the opening 2 hours, but also I would like to know if you would like to hear me comment on this show further. Perhaps I can be the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, that lets you know how it goes before you decide to take the plunge into this paid streaming service, or if you decide. Please let me know in your comments. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please be sure to hit notifications so you can know when I make new videos. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.